What is up, guys? Welcome back to Season 1, Episode 4 of Success in Dialogue, Segment 2. Today we're talking about spirituality again, and I am joined after a quick costume change by my good friends, intellectual heavyweights, Brendan Nell and Brendan Burke. If you haven't already, please go back and listen to the first half of our conversation, which aired on Tuesday. From there, you'll be able to understand the backgrounds of these fine gentlemen, what we've talked about so far, and what we're about to pick up talking about right now.
Episode 1 will also show you how to dress properly.
Yes, yes. Which is something that people should learn.
Indeed.
Yeah, indeed. Anyway, we left off at a point talking about right and wrong, and Nell gave his idea of right and wrong, and now we're going to throw the same idea to Burke to give us an understanding of his understanding of objective reality and right and wrong. Burke, take it away, my friend.
All right, so just to combat the point of relativism, it goes both ways with truth and morality, I believe. That's saying, like, I get to write the rules. I do my thing, you do your thing. Let's not intersect, let's not butt heads. But that takes everything and it puts it on you. It puts you above this higher being, God. I think that would apply to both of our gods. So it
I see what you're saying.
yeah. So I don't know. You can.
No, I think that makes sense, because what you try and avoid and what I try and avoid, in a sense, is elevating yourself to the point of making those kind of like larger laws. What my thing is with relativism is that show me somebody realistically who believes in relativism and then still acts with relativism in terms of I know morality and there is no objective morality, and I'm going to come up with one for myself. And even then, you're kind of losing relativism because you're making an objective morality. But I think that there's a better way forward, best practices possibly, that people who are smarter than I am have come up with, and that's why we said intellectual pursuits. That kind of best practices, because there are certain things in life, in the way you act, and you mentioned this, that help you. You know, if I were to punch Nell in the face to come back after he punched me, would that be the right thing to do? I mean, should you hit somebody else? Like, it's all wrapped in that kind of, okay, there's no like writing in the sky that says do X or do Y, but there are certain things that are better than others. So, I mean, do you have anything to add to that? That was kind of all over the place.
Yeah, if I'm going to be honest, I'm not sure specifically what it is that you're saying. You started off a sentence, you said, show me a person, and then you didn't go more in depth with that person. I would like to hear that.
So somebody who is vehemently opposed to codified, systematic morality, and yet acts in a way that is not harmful to themselves. Is that more clear?
Sure.
Because I feel like everybody identifies, inherently or not inherently,
right,
what's best for them in a way, and to say that.
So Pat, I don't mean to put you between a rock and a hard place.
Please do it.
But I want you to be honest. I think it's important. So point out then what I am doing that is harmful for myself.
Well, you've developed your own system of
right, and
what's better and worse, and you follow it.
And you said the person who does that will inevitably do things that harm themselves.
Not somebody who doesn't decide that. You come up with what you think is beneficial for you and what harms you.
Okay.
You're a guy who's very invested in yourself.
Sure.
And that's why, I want to have you on, and that's why I respect you so much as an intellectual. What I'm, and this was probably unclear, saying is somebody who says, I'm not going to follow any, they kind of like that anarchy kind of.
Yes.
And I mean, we've all run into those kind of people.
Yes.
That nobody can tell me what's better, what's worse. I'm going to do what I want all the time now. I mean, that's a person that I've run into. I feel like it's kind of a trope in society, that kind of elevation of self. Does that make more sense?
Yeah. This has been addressed to me as a danger of sort of teaching people that there is no objective morality, that like so many people will act like this. So my argument against that is, well, it's not worth teaching something that's not true just so it's going to be easier for people. Right? That's what I would say, and that is a danger you run into. But I think when people think about it more, and I think you see this from a lot of intelligent people who don't really have specific morals, you sort of realize that oftentimes doing these things that like we say are objectively right, like say not lying, not stealing, not killing people, right, that actually is better for you too. Right? It's much better for me not to lie. It makes my life much, much easier. It's much, much better like if I don't punch you, because I'm at far less risk of you punching me. And I think a lot more people will come to that realization as opposed to will come to, sort of anarchy. Right. And maybe I'm wrong.
Right. I think at any point, anybody who says, I am 100% certain that this morality, this idea of objective morality is true, any human who says that, I don't think is sane,
right,
or they're jaded in some way. Rather, what I come back with is, for me, being a Catholic, there is no, like, if you could say, hey, point here in the Bible and it tells me how to act in every situation, the best thing that you'll find is love God and love your neighbor and as yourself, and that's phrased differently at certain spots, but that's distilled, that's the best point that I can gather from it, which is a rule that I try to follow, which I think is a rule that everybody should try and follow. But for anybody to thump a Bible and say, this, and pull out every tiny thing from Deuteronomy, it's not applicable and it's not realistic. But for me, engaging with it, and we'll get into this better, like those best practices, like I'm saying, has been beneficial for me and for others.
Right. So I think sort of what you're saying here, and what I believe,
and I do believe it's true though, and I agree about the kind of opioid of the masses thing.
Right.
Not lie to anybody.
Right. You're saying though that a lot of the truths that you find in the Bible, you find them true on their own merit, like regardless of the fact that they show up in the Bible. Like
just like I would read any other book and say,
right,
that's very good.
Like I think that
either of those.
Like I think you would be against lying regardless of whether or not the Bible said it was bad.
Yeah.
And you'd be against murder too.
Mm-hmm.
So and I like that. I think the dangerous thing is to accept any sort of argument from authority. To say this person or this book said this, therefore I think it's right and true. I think that is very dangerous.
Yeah, and I mean I would look to, there's that kind of semi-mythical, I think it was the Thomas Jefferson Bible, where he had a copy of the Gospels, and he cut, and Acts, I think, and cut out all the words except for what Christ said. And I think that that's a decent idea. I've never looked at a list like that, but you could do that with a lot of teachers. Is that fair?
Yes. Oh, without a doubt.
Okay. Well, I think, yeah, Burke, sorry.
So I don't think, or what we need to focus on here is that morality shouldn't come from interior, it should come from exterior. Human beings are not perfect at all. So the differences come in, and the opinions, through different views for sure. We're all trying to go at the same thing, but we just see it from a different angle and we're attacking it at a different spot. So I think that's where the differences come in.
See, Burke, I'm going to completely disagree with you there. I think that anything that is true, you should be able to figure out that it is true for yourself. You should not need anybody or anything to tell you that it's true.
Is that reasonable, you think, though? I mean, why read then?
See, but you read to say, okay, This is a logical argument that is bulletproof and makes sense to me, and that is why I feel it's true. You don't read and go, oh, this person
Alan
says
Watts
this.
said that, so I'm gonna ascribe to
Right. I don't read
And the same thing goes for any book on this table or on that shelf.
I don't read The Way of Zen by Alan Watts and say, oh, well, hey,
show it to the cameraman.
Alan Watts said, I think I did.
Because if people want to learn, and also, Alan Watts.
Well, I would say, we're going to get into this at the end,
Yeah,
so
sorry.
I might as well do it now.
No, might as well.
Okay, do not start with The Way of Zen. It is incredible, but it's a lot. Start with The Book by Alan Watts.
Okay.
When he was writing it, he couldn't think of an adequate title to describe what the book was about because it's about everything.
Mm-hmm.
So he simply called it The Book.
Yeah.
And I don't really think I need to say anymore.
Well, I got ahead of myself there. There will be time for that, but such is the way of a podcast. Continue.
I honestly don't know where I was.
Okay. Well, that's on me then. I think you were talking about you read to see what makes sense.
Right.
To you.
So Burke was
sense.
saying we need external reality. We need external morality.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I think this comes from the idea that we are imperfect and that we are fundamentally flawed. But again, we only sort of got that idea externally from the Bible anyways. So my response was that if it's truth, you should be able to find it yourself. You shouldn't need anybody or anything to tell you it.
So I think the interior part is our conscience for sure. Would you agree with me there at all or no? You don't believe in conscience?
I'm going to temporarily say yes. What do you mean by a conscience? An interior thing that's saying this is right and this is wrong?
Yeah, so that would be us inviting God into our being, and then He gives us inspiration so that we can decide what is right.
See, I think that most of what the Bible says is right and wrong. I think most people would come to without it, as I've already said, as we've discussed, lying or stealing or things like that. I think what a lot of people, including myself, take issue with is the more niche sort of morality things, whether that has to do with things like marriage or sexuality and things like that. And that's sort of where we say, well, look, I look at that and I say, there's no way I could ever just come to this conclusion that this is right myself.
So when you say that, last thing, in terms of you can come to everything yourself.
Right.
Meaning that you can disseminate from different information sources, or that you can, I see this in three ways. In terms of distilling different sources of information that you perceive externally but can prove to yourself and agree with internally, or is it something that you could say, no external sources, I'm only going to do this from myself and my experiences, or do you think it's something that you could figure out, let's say you mentioned the life of like a hermit of sorts?
Okay, I'm going to answer this subtly.
Okay.
Okay, I think everything that we sort of think begins actually with externalities, with an awareness of the external world. So I'm going to go off on a tangent here and ask you a question, and Burke this question, because I think the implications of the answer can be pretty important. So imagine you have a person who is born, and we never want to do this to anyone, but this person is put essentially in like a dark room, and they're on a ventilator, and they have absolutely no like senses whatsoever. Like they cannot feel anything, they cannot hear anything, they cannot see anything, they cannot smell anything, they cannot taste anything, they have no proprioception, they're not aware of where their limbs are, etc. They have zero senses whatsoever. And say this person is allowed to live until they're 18 or however old, 30, 40. Does this person have any thoughts? And either of you can think about this and answer it first.
Thoughts, I'm going to say yes, in terms of instinct. assuming that in this experiment they would like be sustained, right, in terms of food and things.
Yes,
they would have thoughts in terms of like instinctual impulses.
I mean, they wouldn't know they were being fed. They'd be probably being fed intravenously, and they would not be able to feel.
Do you think they would? I think impulse, yes. Thought in terms of that we would say, like, what makes us human in terms of like philosophizing things. I would say, for sure not.
Okay.
Burke.
I'm kind of lost at what the point of this.
I feel like he's gonna illuminate it in a second. I'm looking forward to it though.
I think they would have thoughts just based on the biology of the brain and how complex it is.
Right.
I don't know how much else to say.
Forever sensory deprived. Well, anyway, go ahead. Continue.
Okay. Well, I mean, to answer your question that you sort of just asked me, then.
Yeah.
I'm of the opinion that this person would have no thoughts whatsoever, because I don't think they would have anything whatsoever to think about. Mm-hmm. I think that like the thoughts that we have are born from our senses, right? The world is created, our reality is created at the intersection of the outside world and our senses. Color does not exist until some electromagnetic waves hit our eyes, and that happens. This wall is not hard until I put my hand on it and feel it and perceive it to be so. So sort of then to answer your question,
Aristotelian. Absolutely.
Should you be able to come to these conclusions sort of organically without any externality? Well, no, you can't have any thoughts,
sure.
I think, without any externality. But what I mean is you should be able to feel like you could have come to this conclusion yourself. Okay, so let's say, premarital sex, right? If you think that premarital sex is something that you should not do, I think you should be able to come to that conclusion just the same if Jesus and the Bible didn't exist. That's what I'm saying.
That's definitely a fair opinion. Do you care to comment?
Yeah, I think we had talked recently about normalcy and kind of and this ties into it with his book. I don't think that that people would be able to get this on their own.
Right. Okay, then let me say this. Let's say they can't get it on their own. Then after being taught it, after having learned it, I think then you should be able to come up with an argument that makes no reference to Jesus or the Bible whatsoever supporting that opinion. Because if you cannot come up with that argument, then you're just using an argument from authority, which has absolutely zero standing.
So is it? I think it's in play then. I mean, for me in my life to say, the Bible is something that helps me get there. Is that fair?
Well, it does, but whatever conclusions that you draw from the Bible,
I would agree with that.
You should be able to make an argument outside of the Bible for that thing. Just like you can make a pretty good argument, I can make an argument having nothing to do with the Bible against lying or stealing or murder.
In terms of those societal topics, like you said, premarital sex, among others, certain questions that are facing us as young people, maybe that's something that we can use as an argument of authority in ourselves, but there should always be an aspect of us that questions the authority and that says, if I'm going to talk about this, I should be able to prove it without relying on the argument that God said X.
Right, because the bottom line is, someone who is not Christian is not going to put any authority into Jesus of Nazareth.
And I think a lot of things that do, at least for me, come from the Bible can be substantiated, on arguments outside of faith. I'm somebody who says, okay, in terms of my life, yes, I will say faith seeking understanding.
Yeah.
I am somebody who's comfortable starting from that premise.
Right.
For me. But I 100% endorse the awareness that not many people in life are like that. So that in order to function in a secular society, which we do and which we always will, that's a necessity that you need to wake up to, I think. Anything else to add to there?
No, I think a lot of people just they just go with the flow sometimes, so that can definitely alter the thoughts that you think and the conclusions that you come to.
So just to get a definitive answer here, so do you guys individually believe or not believe that you should essentially be able to substantiate any morality given by the Bible, like without using the Bible as your justification?
Yes.
Okay. Burke?
Oh, sorry. What does substantiate mean?
So I mean,
So
again,
back up.
Simple.
Right, let's
so
take-
use it as evidence.
let's take premarital sex, right? Like I think that if you're going to believe that premarital sex is wrong, you should be able to make an argument against it without referencing the Bible whatsoever.
Yeah.
And you agree with that? Okay. And I like
I
that.
can agree. I think, I mean, just as a disclaimer, that we can both agree with that, saying that for our own lives, we draw authority from the Bible, but that authority comes into practice outside of, the realm of the church. We have to practice it in real life.
And my question that I imagine will probably be answered somewhat tautologically, why have you placed such authority in, say, this book or person? Because from the outside as I am now, it seems pretty arbitrary, as if it could have been any book or any person.
Scripture and tradition is the way in which I think divine reality has been made in any small or large part to humanity.
Okay.
In terms of my view of God, as I said in episode
So then why
1.
this one as opposed to all the others?
In terms of accuracy, in terms of, I will acknowledge, that's how I was raised to believe. I've put much more time into understanding the Bible than, say, the Quran or other things.
Right.
But as of this point, I've had no rift to drive me away, and I do have relatively solid belief that is for me, the correct way to go and the correct way to go in terms of how we've been created. And I feel like you would say something similar, Burke.
So why do I believe in this person, Jesus Christ? It's the power that he's shown over his creation. Miracles, for sure.
Miracles.
They just light me up. He healed the sick. He cast out demons. He raised people from the dead. He himself rose from the dead. His disciples then became apostles. And they died because they believed this. And why would you die for something if you knew it was a lie?
I mean, millions died defending Nazism. Just because someone dies for something doesn't make it true.
I think that's true.
I think in terms of an ideology versus somebody saying you can opt out of this right now, in terms of like a military. You know what I mean? I mean, to be skinned alive or to be burned alive, whereas all you had to do was say, I mean, Jesus Christ is not God, to get out of it, and that people didn't. I mean, whether or not that's, I've never met a martyr myself, but I mean, that seems something so easy versus something so hard in grand scale. Like, why would they go through that?
I agree with this. Not agree. I understand this line of thinking. It's one that I use myself, right? But I mean, if you look historically at how many people have died for various other people who they believe to be some sort of prophet or savior, Jesus is far from being the only one. So I just don't believe that argument holds when there are so many other people for whom other people have also suffered terrible deaths who you don't believe are the Messiah.
Yeah, and I mean, on a more personal scale, for me, as I said, some of my personal heroes and idols are people who have given their lives, given their time, and given sometimes almost all of their resources to the mission of Jesus Christ. And people that I think and find pretty rational, and people who I think are of sound mind to give up a lot of things, creature comforts, and sometimes their own existence to further that. And there are people that I've met, so that has an impact on me.
Right.
Yeah, it's it's definitely betting your life on it. It's all or nothing. If this is all fake, I'm the biggest loser ever. But if this is true, then after I die and if I meet my Lord and Savior, then like that's gonna be the greatest rejoicing ever.
I'm actually gonna ironically disagree with you that it's all sort of a waste if Christianity is not true, because I believe that you and Patrick will likely live very rich and fulfilled lives under Christianity. So even if it happens to not be true, I don't think it will be wasted.
Yeah, but if there's nothing after this, if there's no afterlife, then it's basically a waste. I should be out having as much fun as I possibly can have.
Or be fulfilled in a certain way, whatever you think is best.
So you're saying if there is no afterlife, you would be a heathen if you didn't believe there was an afterlife? Because I don't think that's true. I don't think you'd be a heathen.
What's a heathen?
It's like as somebody who seeks pleasure for pleasure's sake. Traditionally, that was something that, in a way, that they was not, like, we use the word hedonism in terms of drugs and partying, but original hedonism was people who look for as much fulfillment as possible in this life.
Okay, see, I'm referring to it in the contemporary way.
Yes.
In the terms of, like, you go out basically, like, having all this, like, temporary pleasure. Like I don't think you would do that. I don't do that because I don't think that is the best way to live a happy and fulfilled life. I think people who do that, maybe under the illusion that they are happier. I think most of them know that they're not.
Right.
I think most of them
they do it anyway.
know that they're missing something.
Right. Pin this right where you are, and I'm going to introduce some questions that are more central to the mission of our podcast. One of our good friends, Steven Sleva, I guess he didn't ask a question, but he just slid up and said, temptation, period. And I feel like that's the best way to do it. So, right, you said that maybe sometimes, even if religion is not the correct way or the way forward, it enables us to live a better life in the life that we have. So talk about, the both of you, how being more spiritually guided has, and in ways of temptation, because those ideals, like you said, having as much fun, partying, drinking, things that are a lot of very prevalent. Nell, you don't drink at all.
Right.
How do you kind of reject that, and how has it made your life better? I'll go to you first.
Okay, so I think let's note that, say, Burke and I will have very different views on temptation. So let's say, why do I reject some temptations? Okay, I think Burke may reject some temptations because he believes that they are fundamentally wrong, right? That there are things that are wrong to do, therefore I'm not going to do that. For me, it's more like this temptation that is here right now, this immediate, fleeting gratification that I will get. The reason I deny that often is because I know that that is not what is actually going to make me happier in the long run. That is not what I really want. I think a lot about discipline, right? Discipline is in the choices that you make, and my favorite definition of discipline is that discipline is a choice between what you want now and what you want most. And maybe what I want now is just to feel good, so I want to go get hammered. But maybe what I want most is to live a happy and fulfilled life, and I know that, like, if I'm doing that consistently, that, like, that is not going to lead to that, and therefore I weigh that choice and I decide I'm going to go with what I want more. So that is sort of how I deal with and look at temptation.
Okay, and I feel like, other than what you said at the outset, that is nearly identical to the way that, I mean, because I don't want to put words in your mouth, but we talked a lot about this. I'm going to allow you to speak. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think we do need to try to find points where we're together on this instead of just creating division. So
this is an issue where we almost practice the same thing just for different
reasons.
Right.
But practice nearly identical.
Yes.
Okay.
Including the reasoning in terms of discipline, what you want now and what you want most.
Right.
But the most is just different.
Yes, exactly.
Go ahead.
And this is all over. I'm going to look into Zen more, and I don't know, maybe you can teach me a little bit. Okay. Sorry. Temptation. So I would kind of look at it as it's homework, and it's our chance to do something I kind of want to say on our own, but we're never really on our own. So it's like, why don't parents do their homework for their kids? It's because they won't learn, they won't grow very fast. So temptation it's us, it's getting in there and really battling it out. When we feel that God isn't necessarily with us. So that's when we pray and we ask God to defend us from this.
So that's how you build your kind of spiritual strength. I mean, that's something that we've talked about a lot.
Yeah.
I feel like you can't, like you said with the homework, you can't learn unless you're challenged. And I feel like that's a pretty adequate metaphor. Okay, so now we're going to move in to the bread and butter, a little pivot. A question for both of you guys. The most important things that you've learned so far that you want people to hear, which will hopefully be.
I'm gonna let Burke go first.
Yeah, awesome.
You don't know everything. Well, let me say, you know more than you think you do, but you don't know as much as you think you do also. So like
the shifting ego.
I couldn't agree more on that.
Yeah.
That's a great statement.
So like that's all about confidence, I'd say. And like every human being is so complex, they're so different, they're so beautiful, and there's so many walks of life as well. And just the idea of memory too, and being able to go back and tell some amazing stories and laugh with your buddies. I mean, that is a high point in life for me. But
Guys, I'm really sorry about this to all you listening on YouTube, but my video camera actually ran out of space on its SD card. As I talked about with Nell after the episode, Murphy's Law, everything that can go wrong will go wrong. And as you guys know, we've had our fair share of technical difficulties on Success and Dialogue, but if you want to hear the rest of what Burke was saying, tune in to our audio version on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, or just keep watching. It's only about 10 to 15 seconds of cutoff, and I apologize for the inconvenience. Thanks for sticking with it.
The most important thing for everybody to do is to question everything. Everything that you learn, question it. And I'm talking about whether it's religion, math, chemistry, psychology, etc. The best way to understand anything is to question it, is to say, well, look, this doesn't make sense to me, let me figure it out. Or, oh, this seems wrong, let me test if it is wrong, and then I will find out. So, question everything.
That's very good. And I think that spirit of questioning is something that the three of us can absolutely unite on and say, you need it. Because so many people out there, and I say this on every freaking episode, and I get so fired up, don't be docile.
Right.
Go after the truth. Wake up every day and realize that there's something that you can learn and something that's out there, and you can go get it.
Yeah.
You can learn things and realize things, and it's all out there, you know? Set an alarm. Get off your phone. Read something. Like, these guys are where they are in terms of society and their reputation and success and their level of knowledge and personal growth because they pursue it on a daily, hourly basis. And that is the highest compliment I think that I can give anybody, regardless of view, regardless of creed, or anything like that. So to you guys out there, I would say absolutely. Take the spirit, take what we said, yes. Take the discussion, please do. But take the spirit at which these guys pursue the truth and please apply it to your own life, because it will change a lot and you will learn a lot. That being said, time for shout outs and then recommendations for reading and listening. Let's do reading and listening first, Burke.
All right. Anything by Peter Kreeft is really good. He's very basic. And
Burke, what are some works by him? Because I recognize them.
okay, Yes or No is one.
Show it.
This is good.
Sorry for the audio, but people listening. It's a great book.
Your Questions, God's Answers. Those are just a couple. Music that I love is Matt Maher.
Yeah.
So shout out to Big Mike Dewan, and Matt Maher.
Every day. Every day. Had to let it out there.
Yeah, you're a beast, and I was jamming to you this morning on my drive into work. So.
Awesome. No, read your recommendation.
So I already gave the recommendations here with
Right.
The Book and The Way of Zen by Alan Watts.
Absolutely.
I also mentioned Food of the Gods by Terence McKenna, which he describes as a radical history of plants, drugs, and human evolution. Also talks about a lot of religion in there. It is just absolutely fascinating from a sort of anthropological point of view. With Alan Watts, though, I didn't start with reading. I started with YouTube videos. I just showed up on my feed one day. I think the most popular Alan Watts video on YouTube is just this video called You're It. So just search up You're It by Alan Watts. It's like a 4 or 5 minute video of just him saying words, and it'll blow your mind.
Those sound bites from Alan Watts will change the way you think. You watch one, and I guarantee that you will think differently for the next 48 hours. And I mean, you've sent me many of them, 5 or 6 over the years, and in terms of every aspect of your life, in terms of like romance and purpose, and he touches on.
Oh, he touches on everything
very accurately, and there's a huge sound library of his lectures.
There is more,
which are free to listen to.
Yeah, there's more Alan Watts on YouTube.
I'll put a link somewhere.
There's more on YouTube than you'll ever have time for, and I guess we're doing music too.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean,
that was it.
All of my close friends, including Pat, probably already know what I'm going to recommend as far as music goes.
There we go.
If you're not already a massive fan, you absolutely have to listen to "Is This It?"
Yes.
by The Strokes.
Yes, The Strokes.
It is
love The Strokes.
one of the best albums you will ever hear.
Absolutely.
And despite what the critics say, "Room on Fire," their second album, is equally good. Listen to them both.
Hot take. Flaming hot take.
All right.
Flaming hot take. Listen to it. Yeah, The Strokes are fantastic. We got a few minutes for shout outs.
Let me shout out the Bible too, real quick.
Yeah,
that is.
If you haven't read the Bible, open it, read it. Read the Gospel of Matthew, specifically chapter 6. Read the Gospel of John. Read Genesis, and read the book of Job. Because a lot of people talk about the Bible without having read it, and I would invite people to actually sit down, treat it as a book, open it, and read it. Not, as we said, to take an argument from authority, but to educate yourself. Because we talk a lot about these kind of things in society, and hopefully you can increase your education. Quickly, yeah, shout outs, dude. Let me go.
Well, I'm going to say, dude, even as somebody who's not Christian, like, read the Bible. If what you know about Christianity just comes from, like, what people say or, like, going to church, then, I mean, you are missing a lot, right? And even as somebody who is not Christian, Jesus says a lot of very beautiful and very profound things and a lot of great food for thought.
Absolutely.
So,
and there's a lot of intersectionality there.
And so while we're talking about the Bible, Burke, what translation do you prefer?
The NIV.
Yeah, same with me, the NIV.
I grew up on the New American Standard Bible, which I have right here, but in school we read, can you snag that New Testament, Burke, and show it? That is, I believe, David Bentley Hart, and that was recommended by an extremely educated professor who I will shout out in a minute. And then we have Robert Alter, who is a Jewish man who is just completely affluent in all ways of language and things like that. But that's a very good and very literal translation that will open your eyes on a few key phrases. Yeah, shout outs.
I think we might have skipped over like our biggest influences, maybe a little bit, but
yeah,
I kind of forgot at least.
Mesh them together, man.
Yeah,
you're the guest. You're in the chair. Create the narrative.
Yeah. Thank you, Dad, for giving such a bold witness to the faith and the joy that you bring into every single situation. Thank you, Mom. Although you're not the most expressive with the faith, you taught me how to love in such a deep way, and I can never thank you enough, Mom. I want to shout out all my friends from CC, and the rest of my family too.
Including Big Mike DeWan.
I give him a shout
Yeah,
out.
dude. Every day, baby. Every day.
He's the man.
He is the man. I had to shout him out. Nell, go ahead.
People I'd like to thank for the way I think today. I'd first like to thank my boss from the first job I've ever had. His name is Brandon Gugala. He really introduced me to some other ways of thinking, and he's a very intelligent and spiritual person, and I'll just say he knows what's up. And having said that, go rent a paddleboard from That's What's Up stand up
Absolutely.
paddling.
And go hang out there. All the great guys work there.
I'd also like to thank my good friend Quinn Murray for providing me someone to bounce ideas off of, and also for helping me relax once in a while. Sometimes I
They get
struggle
casual again.
to do that, indeed. And then one last book again. Pat already mentioned Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. It is absolutely a must read. It's a
Yes.
short book. It's very
Yes.
easy to read. Once you pick it up, you will not want to put it down. Personally, I would recommend the Gregory Hayes translation. It is the
believe that's
most
the one I have.
popular translation. It is just it may not necessarily be the most exact, but it is by far the most straightforward and eloquent. If you don't want to dive right into meditations, as it's a lot, it punches you in the face.
Absolutely.
Also recommend
From the first line.
The opening is mind blowing. Start with The Obstacle Is the Way by
Yes.
Ryan Holiday. That's just a bit more of
Get the audiobook of that
Yes,
if you want.
the audiobook,
Jim, that's what I
right.
do.
It's just it's a distillation of meditations, and sort of
examples
filled
as
with
well.
stories of people who have applied these principles. So yeah, that as well.
Yeah.
Patrick?
To close it out, a couple shout outs. I guess my bounce off partner, who I can't believe I haven't shouted out yet, Quinn McKenna from school. We featured her question, and I talked to her almost on a daily basis about life and a lot of these things. So I owe her a huge thank you. I know I don't say it enough, but she's been instrumental in my intellectual growth. And also, I can't believe I haven't shouted out yet, just kind of Catholic Central as a school, for giving me these two friends and many others, and a place to grow up and become a man and chase truth. And it's almost impossible to say how an organization or a school can give so much, but it's not perfect by any means, but it's more than I could have ever asked for from a high school. And then just thanks for the two of you guys for not only coming on the show and being bold about your opinions and taking that leap, but being guys that I can always talk to about certain things, and which we have over the years. Some of the conversations I've had with these guys have been some of the most formative for me.
Shout out to all the Kai Bros.
Yeah, seriously.
For sure.
Seriously. Kairos 26 at CC. Absolutely. And that was my next one. The people who make that retreat possible, especially Mr. Walters and the Bazillion Fathers. It would be appropriate to not shout out the Bazillion Fathers, I feel like.
Yeah.
Or at a winter sports assembly or something like that. But any last words, guys?
I want to thank all the priests in my life too.
Yeah.
Just laying down
It's
your
good
life
witness.
for what you believe.
We good?
We're good.
Well, that's been it, guys. Sorry we went a tiny fraction of a bit over time, but I think it was absolutely 100% worth it. These are guys that, honestly, let me know what you think, but we're probably going to bring these guys back ASAP because there's so much that we didn't even get to. Thank you to all of you who have sent in questions. Please follow us on Instagram at Success in Dialogue, on Twitter at SID Podcast 1. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Like this video if you're watching on YouTube. Turn on post notifications. All that good stuff. Shout out our fantastic producer, Declan Lee. Find him on Instagram at So You Think I Can Draw. That being said, I think that's a wrap, guys. Thank you so much for coming on. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Give us a rating, and that's all the plugs that I have. There's so many. Sorry about that, but if this kind of stuff doesn't get your brain going and fire you up, I don't know what will. These guys go get it every day, and I would invite you to do the same. So thanks for listening, and we will see you next week. Thanks, everyone. Go get it.
you have it, guys. Season 1, Episode 4 of Success in Dialogue, Spirituality is complete. Guys, I really hope you enjoyed this episode, and I would like to say a special thank you again to all of you who submitted questions. I love this format. I love getting your feedback, as I always say, and I really just thought that this was a great way for us to connect to the listeners. And as I said in the episode, I'm pretty sure we're going to be having these guys back soon, so do not hesitate to reach out with suggestions for what we should talk about next time I have Burke and Nell on, and also any other suggestions you might have to make our show better. For those of you who have already reached out, I really appreciate it. Another quick shout out that I can't believe we forgot to mention was to our good friend and fantastic teacher, Mr. Kevin Griffin. I don't know if you'll ever hear this, but we wanted to shout you out. You were the one who introduced me to the Strokes and so many other more important and more valuable things in terms of literature and life and being a man of Catholic Central. So thank you to Mr. Griffin. And guys, that's it from me today. As always, follow us on Instagram at Success in Dialogue. Follow us on Twitter at SID Podcast 1. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Success in Dialogue. Like videos, comment on them, and turn on post notifications. If you're listening on iTunes, please give us a rating and write a review. I love getting reviews from you guys, and I love reading them all, and we're just going to try and build up that rating as high as possible because that's the way we get featured in the iTunes store, and that's the way we're going to get more listeners. Stay tuned later this week for a special announcement. Our guests next week are going to be huge. I am so excited to let you guys know who we have. I already filmed the episode. It's fantastic. It's awesome. It is awesome. Anyway, guys, in the meantime, get out there and, as always, go get it. Thank you.